Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Howell, Bashim Shai, Bahashem, Rakakudash, the blindness of the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. You Akim to Satakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shaman, and this one's going to be entitled The Serpent is Still Beguiling Eve to This Day. And going back to the Garden of Eden when the serpent beguiled Eve, that serpent was a man. He had snake-like ways. That was a so-called white man, And Eve is the woman of our nation. To my left, I have Stacey Abrams. And to my right, I have Alexandria Acosta-Cortez, I believe. AOC for short. What you got is a woman on the left is from the southern kingdom of the nation of Israel. The one on the right is from the northern kingdom, so-called Puerto Rican, so-called Negro. And the woman to the left, she's in talks of being Joe Biden's Sleepy Joe running mate. So you have a nigga woman in talks of being vice president. Now, contrary to popular belief, Barack Obama was not an Israelite, right? He wasn't a so-called Negro. He was an African. There's a difference between the Africans and the so-called black man. So we see that the first real Israelite that to get way, way up in their position of vice president over America is the so-called black woman. This is Proverbs 11:21. Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished. So the woman of our nation, Eve, is still joined hand in hand with the so-called white man. The woman of our nation has been lifted up on purpose. Better education, easier way to get to the system. All these things is being done by design. It's not to benefit our people, but it's rather to destroy our people. And I'm going to prove that, because what they're doing is setting the woman at odds with the men and putting men above women. Putting women above men, by giving them higher political status, higher educational status than the men, and giving them leverage over men in the society. And what that does is destroy a family structure. Women that's supposed to be having kids at very young ages are now 30 years old, just finishing school and getting their careers together. And when they go out there to try to put together a family, it's far too late. It's far too late, man. It's much easier to have a child at, let's say 15 years old, and you're 25, now they're 10, then 30 years old, and you're 40 years old, and they're 10. You know what I'm saying? It's different. Proverbs 11:21. Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished. Now, who's the wicked? The wicked are the ones of our people that join their hand with the so-called white man. And to be a politician, you have to do deceitful things. You have to take briberies. And the reason they big up these women, especially of our tribes, is because Jake has a lot of influence, right? This dude Biden, he says, look, man, he's going to either settle for either 11 women or one gay dude to be his vice president. So they trying to appeal to everyone, Prime example, you got this woman on the right, AOC. Oh, she from the Bronx. Yeah, she from the BX. No, she's not, right? She grew up in Westchester County with a well-off family. You put it in Webster or Tremont, she'll get lost, So that's just a selling point, to get you Jakes to, to get to you Jakes to easily deceive you, because the man is normally tail chasing a woman. It says, though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. Who's the seed of the righteous? Seed of the righteous, Jezreel, is you Israelites out there, primarily the elect, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But as you can see, the women of our nation are still being deceived to stand up for the so-called white man, to stand up for the society, to think making it ahead in the society is all it's about, And if a Jake is trying to just work honest living, if he's not making six figures, he's a deadbeat, And a lot of these women, that shows that women are truly dependent by nature. Because a man, when he approach a woman, he's not going to say how much you make, because he doesn't care how much you make. He could fend for himself. But women want to know how much you make and what you do, because they're already thinking we're going to have to live together and we're going to have to feed off each other and all that type of shit. That's a dependent mind state, which that's in their spirit. The Most High programmed them that way. Let me go ahead and prove what I was talking about. Going back to Genesis 3. And this video might get flagged. Maybe. Who knows? Genesis 3:16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow. and thy conception, that's like a woman go through child labor pains for the sin that they did going all the way back to the Garden of Eden. If you don't believe me, just look at all the animals. When the female animals give birth, they don't cry, they're not in pain or none of that stuff. They just had the baby. It's gonna go back to that in the kingdom of heaven. But ever since the woman went off, she's been going through all these labor pains and agonizing pains, and there's no medication Esau could prescribe to sedate it because it's a curse. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be unto thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. So the order of things is the husband to rule over the woman. And just like how the Lord Yahweh Shai rules over us, and who rules over Yahweh Shai, the Most High, there's a order to things. And men are less, generally speaking, less emotional. It's hard to say that nowadays, but generally speaking, men are supposed to be less emotional than a woman. So we have no problem taking orders from our Heavenly Father. In fact, we delight in it. But women are being emotional creatures. They have a hard time taking order from their men, you know? Now, before I go to the next scripture, I want to bring out something to prove that this was orchestrated. This is the infamous Willie Lynch letter, right? It says, Willie Lynch letter, the making of a slave. You can look up this letter on different articles and websites. It's a famous letter. It says, this speech was said to have been delivered by Willie Lynch on the bank of the James River in the colony of Virginia in 1712. Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies. He was invited to the colony of Virginia in 1712 to teach his methods to slave owners there. So I'm going to go down. He says a bunch of things. And one of the primary things that he always mentioned is, here you go. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all blacks. So putting male woman against male is a part of the Willie Lynch letter. And they've been doing things like this since, let's use the welfare system. It's a great example. That's what destroyed Native American lands, black families, so-called Latino and Puerto Rican, Mexican families, is the welfare system. You become dependent on the government, and you have to make a certain bracket of income to make that money. And if you have a husband or man in the household, you can't get that money. So they kind of force you to be an independent woman. And then what they do is they give the child over to the woman instead of the man. When the scripture says otherwise, the scripture says if you do file a bill of divorce, the man is supposed to get everything. But what they do is they put the man here in a leverage. And it's hard mentally for a man to know that he's paying this woman while this woman has his kids. He could barely see his kids. And she getting dicked down by some nigga that's just came out of the prison system. And they do shit like that to fuck with you. They might break up with you, have you pay child support, then go fuck your best friend. And these things weigh heavy on a man's mind and drive certain jakes to insanity. So that creates a disruption. Meanwhile, the so-called white man, he doesn't do any of these things. His family's structures stay well together, you know? Because they're not going through that type of tribulation and situations, man. It says, for all the future, special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. Why the youngest offspring? Because you can manipulate the child's mind. You know, that's how you determine a generation, what the next generation is going to be by affecting the current generation, right? So affecting the child mind is a primary focus as well. And they do things like that. Why do you think niggas ain't wearing fanny packs and have high top fades anymore? Because that's not on TV. You know, because the generation that grew up after that was listening to NWA and violence and all this type of shit. And that's what you see now today. I want to go to something real quick. Ecclesiasticus 30 verse 5. It says, 30 and 1. He that loveth his son causeth him often to feel the rod, that he may have joy of him in the end. Yeah, so when you discipline that's another thing you can't even do. You can't discipline your kids. You know, when your kids do bad, you're supposed to chasten them, beat their ass, you know? That way they'll never see you as their equal. But in this society, it's completely frowned upon, and they do quite the opposite. It says, he that chasten his son shall have joy in him, and shall rejoice of him amongst his acquaintance. Now, you tell me that's not an emotional thing, man. The scriptures is telling you to chasten your son, well, people are going to feel that they know better than what the Lord told them. He that teaches his son grieveth the enemy, and before his friends he shall rejoice of him. So when you teach your son, raise your son up the correct way, that grieves the enemy. That's how come, you look at Jake in his 60s and stuff like that, how they had a revolutionary mindset. Esau wanted to break that up. And how did he break that up? By taking the father out the household, because it goes beyond just income. It goes beyond raising the kid and affecting that generation. You have a generation of men that's raised by a woman. The scriptures tell you that what? A woman that is born of a man that is born of a woman is of a few days, right? Because you're going to grow up thinking like women. Women are very emotional individuals. That's how come niggas get mad if you look at them incorrectly or step on their shoes. It's just some shoes, sorry, my bad, bro. Let me just swipe off the scuff. But niggas will kill you and be destructive, man. Highly emotional. Men are highly emotional nowadays because a lot of them grew up, without the father in the house, man. And Esau does things to drive the father out the household, by giving these women so much power. This is all done by design. This is not coincidental. It says, though his father die, yet he is as though he were not dead, for he hath left one behind that is like himself. So if you look at Jake in his 60s and Jake's now, they're completely different. You know what I'm saying? Because the effect has been done already. And they're still going to continue it. They're going to keep putting the woman against the man. Look, there's only one way to win. To overcome this is if you have to go by what the Bible says. So you sisters out there that are listening, be in subjection to your husband, man. Don't listen to what Esau tells you, that you should be equal to your husband or you should fight against your husband. The best thing we could do is listen to the Lord, And the Lord said there's an order system. And that part, again, to be submissive and take orders and have some type of order is frowned upon for a woman nowadays, right? She has to be out there. She has to be dictating. She has to be like these individuals you see above. But you have to understand the enemy is giving you this image. The enemy is telling you this is the way to be. But, for the most part, women are going to be easily manipulated and believe that. It says, back in the Willie Lynch letter, it says, therefore, if you break female mother, she will break the offspring. See that? If you break the female mother, she will break the offspring. It is nearly years of development. In its early years of development. So this structure is still being done today. They still follow this shit. The breaking process of the African woman. So, look at this one. By her being left alone unprotected with the male image destroyed, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. And that's, what that reminds me of? Mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. These athletes. Yeah, man, I want to thank my mama, man. I'm going to give my mama this house, man. They all mentally weak and dependent, but they physically dominant. And that's a lot of Jakes. That's a lot, not just MB, that's a lot of Israelites out there, man. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offspring to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the nigger woman out front and the nigger man behind and scared. You don't think that the so-called white man is not using the same protocol? Because it works today. It works today, man. It works today. Most women, if you're not super embracing the system, you're going to get frowned upon, man. Now going back to these scriptures and showing that it's all prophetic. Because the Bible has everything written. This is Jeremiah 31:22. How long wilt thou go about, O thou backsliding daughter? For the Lord Yahweh Shemir Shai have created a new thing in the earth. A woman shall compass a man. So, you tell me which has stronger families. Families here in the Western hemisphere of thinking, or families in the Eastern hemisphere of thinking. So if you go over there in places like the Middle East, what's crazy? The so-called Jew out there in the land of Israel, they have the highest family. They have like 4 members per family, and they growing like crazy. Because what? They have their order, they're going by the rules. Well, they're not the real people of the Bible, but they acting out Middle Eastern customs, man. All right. You establish these traditions. They're not gonna be crazy amounts of divorces and all that. All right, you establish a law of adultery. You know that the woman can't have no other man unless the man is dead. Then you have less adultery. If you put adulterous dudes to death, you have less madness going on. Adulterous women to death, you have less madness going on. But then in this society, you could freak off with as much people as you can. You could, hey man, you know the woman will tell her daughter, experiment and date as much people as you want to date, and all that shit is confusion. All that shit is being implemented by the enemy. You know, they do not want to see you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans come together as a family. They want to break that structure down by any means. And they prop up people like these, Stacey Abrams and AOC and whatever other, Michelle Obama and Condoleezza Rice, and they prop this image up, and it's all psychological. Don't think it's just done by design. It's all psychological, man. You know? 2 Corinthians 11:3. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve, which we see in today, through his subtlety. So the so-called white man is never going to come out expressly and tell you what he's doing, but he's going to covertly do it and do it in a subtle manner. When you see people like these, this plays on your mind. See a strong black woman, a strong Spanish woman. But what they showing the image of the Negro man, the Latino man, the Native American man, he's in trouble, he's in jail, he's a robber, he's a looter. He's a deadbeat, he's always leaving. You know what I'm saying? These types of images. Meanwhile, you got Jake that loves their kids, want to be with their kids, but these court systems inhibit that from happening. To raise the statistic, to raise the, he's a deadbeat dad role, psychology is a very important thing. You could play on somebody's mind. You could affect an entire generation. And we've seen it done today. It says, beguiled Eve through his subtlety. So your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Yahweh Shai. So, same way the serpent beguiled Eve, you have the so-called white man that's deceiving all our people. You think he's doing one thing good for you, but when you really check it out, he's just having nothing but madness done for you, man. With that, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakodash, the blessings to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, which you well, and salutations to the whole for the elect out there. You Akim to Sadakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.